Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Little Ruby's Daycare Encounters YouTube channel, where we emphasize play-based learning, wellness, and research-based solutions to issues in early childhood education. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button, like, share, help us reach our next subscriber goal, which is 300. And when we get to 300, we're going to be doing a giveaway. Welcome to WAGE Interviews. WAGE stands for World Advocacy for Growth in Education. With WAGE, we are dedicated to interviewing educators from all over the world with the goal of comparing educational systems and practices. And we know that when we compare educational systems and practices, we learn from other educational systems and then we can improve on ours. We are honored to have Ilnur Miftakhov, and I hope I said that well, from Russia. Ilnur's first degree was in interior design. He worked with gifted teenagers for 5 years. He then received some training on applied psychology, and with that training, he became an educational psychologist and trainer. Illnur has also worked on international project that involved a collaboration, with a team of Singaporean experts. The team's goal then was to train Russian teachers and educational leaders in areas like critical thinking, cooperative learning, problem-based learning, brain-based learning, and professional learning communities. Illnur also coordinated projects of the government-run program for strategic management of talents in one of the regions of Russia. Illnur has supported the restructuring of school management systems. He has worked with World Skills Russia, the federal level educational project devoted to transforming the system of vocational education. Now, with a scholarship from the Russian government, Illnur was able to study at the University of Bristol in the United Kingdom, where he completed a master's in science in education and specialized in leadership and policy. So, since returning to Russia in 2019, Illnur has been working in University 2035, a flagship federal level government-run project devoted to the digital transformation of the higher education system. With that project, they focus on developing AI-driven solutions to rethink the educational field in Russia. Now he's leading a small team of researchers and developers. Let me bring Illnur in so we can have a very nice chat with him. Hi, Ilnur.
Hi, Brenda. It's a pleasure to be here. Hi.
It is a pleasure to have you. It's amazing. I can't believe that I have you here today.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So, I'm glad you're here, and I thank you. And I know we're gonna have a very nice conversation.
I hope so.
You say since returning to Russia in 2019, you worked with the 2035, a flagship federal level government-run project. Can you tell me about that project?
Yeah, so it's called University 2035, and it's really, really interesting thing because it's the very first university in the world which has an expiration date. Like literally,
wow.
Yes. we are only there until 2035.
Wow.
It's the expiration date. Yeah. So, well, usually if you look at the universities, they don't tend to have, expiration date. They tend to struggle to live forever, right?
Right.
But we have certain tasks to achieve, and that's why we have expiration date. Another thing that this 2035 thing stands for is the audience that we are aiming for, the young people starting from 20 to 35 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And what we are doing in Russia now is we are allowed to actually develop artificial intelligence-based technologies in order to transform the higher education system. Well, and it's actually big luck to be working there because we are given certain freedom in order to actually reconsider the educational process itself. Yeah,
Wow.
because you don't really receive these kind of opportunities.
No. Wow.
Yes.
So the 2035 is not just the expiry date, it's also the age range that you're working with.
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
my. That's an amazing program. I know,
Yeah.
So
I can actually tell you in like brief details about what we do, because it's fascinating. In fact, I like telling you about
I do want to hear it. I want to hear it.
Well, basically, as I said, we are devoted to reconsidering education in itself. And what we are trying to do is we're trying to kind of establish this friendship between a human and the machine.
The machine. Oh, wow.
Yes. So, it deals with artificial intelligence, obviously, because we claim that education is such a complex process, and there are so many factors in it in order to individualize the learning process that only things like artificial intelligence can actually help us to, to reinforce the overall process. So it all starts with a digital assessment of the students. So a student goes through several assessment tools completely online, and these assessments are not like test-based, right? Because they are too boring, but they are all game-based or chatbot-based and this kind of things. So that when a student is going through all these instruments, the system kind of assesses the profile of the student in order to understand what his values are, what his, say, team role is, or what his behavior patterns are, and these kind of things. And then based on these things, on this information, a digital profile is created. And then according to these data in the digital profile of the student, then we start recommending certain things to the student. It might be things like online courses, or maybe getting in touch with someone else from the community, or and things like that. So we are working on these kind of things, and we have like lots of artificial intelligence based tools which are helping to actually bring the student from educational environment to the labor market environment. For example, another thing that we have here, I really like talking about these things because they are.
I want to hear it. Don't worry.
because they are fascinating. In fact, I do like what we do. So one of the things that we have here is, say, we are analyzing the data from the labor market. We actually, download all these big data from these, vacancy sites, all these vacancies out there, right? So we basically download them, and then we create all algorithms to actually analyze all these things and to draw some, analytics from it. Say, if you have all these data, you can actually analyze it and understand what skill sets are on high demand there at the labor market. Or, for example, you can actually understand which kind of professions are connected with which kind of skill sets. And furthermore, you can then also see which kind of skills are in high demand there, which are not taught in the universities, for example. So you can actually analyze all these things. It's a complex procedure, actually. To perform all this semantic analysis and everything. But then in the end, you can understand a lot about the labor market, and then hopefully you can connect, the students with the labor market. So this kind of things.
That's amazing. So it's like you're working with with jobs and skill sets, and on the one hand, and then on the other hand, you're working with students so that you can eventually match them. And this is gonna take care of job vacancies and unemployment and problems like that. As time goes on. Oh my gosh! That is amazing.
It's really interesting. Even more, we have projects like, say, assessing the corporate culture of an organization, so that afterwards we would know not only the skill set that is required at a certain position, but even the corporate culture of that position, so that we could say forecast if the student or an employee would be fitting, these particular position there.
Oh man,
this kind of things.
Oh my goodness. We need that system all over the world.
We're happy to share.
Oh, Lord, that's amazing. Oh my goodness.
Let me tell you one more thing.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
So another thing that we are currently working on, it's very, very new. We are just, starting to work on this topic. But since we have all these, digital profiles of the students, and since we understand that we cannot work as individuals in this world, right? All the, great results are produced in teams. So this is one of the topics that we're also working on, to be able to create new teams only knowing the digital profiles of the people. So they have not met each other before, but you knowing their psychological, portraits, you try to match them in a team that hopefully will be performing really well. So this is also one of the research that we are having here.
So you're building artificial intelligence teams,
As well.
Oh my, that means you're bringing characteristics of different people together that will match and work well together.
Yeah. So, some of these projects are, pretty mature already. Some of them are just, at the beginning stage, but we're working on it.
Amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's so interesting.
It is interesting and fascinating and mind-blowing. So can you tell me where you are now, like today? Where are you currently?
I'm located in Moscow now. It's the capital of Russia, Okay. But basically, since March, we've been working remotely, so I could have been living like elsewhere.
Okay. Right. So how's your weather like?
It's unusually warm. It's getting warmer like year by year. Like, for example, a couple of years ago, or maybe like last winter, we noticed that there was almost no snow here. Can you imagine? Like Russia, everyone thinks that Russia is snowy, right? But last year in Moscow, there was almost no snow. Yeah.
Wow.
And this autumn, it also feels like it's going to be that warm.
So tell me about you in education. How did it begin? How did you start? How did you want to be an educator?
Well, my mother has been working as a teacher for 40 years already, 40 years, all her life, Yeah. So that's why I did never think that I will become an educator in the very beginning. But so I happened to be studying in a really, really good school. It was a big luck for me. And after, graduating from that school, they just invited me to be an educator there, to work with the teenagers there while I was studying. I was doing my first degree at the university. So I was doing these two processes all at once. And, after doing education for several years, I understood how important it is, because actually we as educators, we are the ones who can influence the world the most, right? In a good way, because depending on how we bring up all these students, all these kids, these kids are going to be the ones who will be changing the world in the future, right? So if we upbring them as good persons, as professionals, this is really, really, really important. So I kind of, liked this idea on the values level first, and then of course I was, switching some positions, but I was staying inside the educational industry, in the educational sector. So first I started with working in schools, then I transferred to, applied psychology field. But again, I was working in the educational sector. Then I started, teacher training, working with, all these professional development programs. Then I was invited to coordinate the projects of one of the region's program. It was dealing with strategic talents management, and it was really huge and interesting and really, really complex. And it kind of boosted my professional development very much.
Right.
And then I understood that I'm more interested in, systematic transformations of education, because before that I was more interested, in peer-to-peer or one-to-one interaction with people, educating them in this way. But then I understood that my interest lays in this area more, on systems, transforming systems, managing change, and all this stuff. So gradually I switched to this area. Then I was lucky enough to, gain certain positions in federal level projects here in Russia. As you mentioned in the very beginning, I worked for World Skills International for 1 year. This is also a very interesting project. I've been lucky to have been working in very innovative projects. It's a big luck.
Right. Yeah, I that was exactly my thought when I was reading your bio. I was like, Lord, this is amazing. Yeah.
Yes, this is really big luck. Yeah.
It is. It is. And it's like Russia is rapidly, with these various programs that I've seen you involved in, you're rapidly moving into the artificial intelligence sector. Like merging it into education, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that Russia in overall is like completely, using all these artificial intelligence technologies and so on. As they say, when future is coming, it doesn't come like everywhere all at once. It comes to certain points first. It happens somewhere. Then these certain points start growing, and then they kind of go to other places as well. So I happen to be working in this, future connected points here in Russia.
Right. It's amazing. So can you, we already did that, talked about what you do and how you got into education. So I want to ask you these major questions a lot of people want to know. Can you describe Russia's current educational system?
Well, I can do that. We have pretty much similar system to all of the developing world economies, I'd say. We obviously have lots of public schools. I think like 41,000 schools we have here. We have lots of universities, we have colleges, vocational training programs, and so on. So most of the schools, like 98% of the schools here in Russia are public. Well, according to the research in 2017, it might become like 3% private schools already, or maybe 4%, but not that many,
Not many, wow.
Yeah. Then we also have a largely publicly funded higher education system here. I'd say that some of the best Russian universities are in top 100 of best universities all over the world. And recently, for last maybe 5-7 years, this number has been increasing. This means that Russian universities are also growing in terms of all these international rankings. But overall, we have rather strong pedagogy in terms of we have historically had really good scholars in terms of pedagogy, psychology of education, these kind of things. Like you have probably heard of Vygotsky or some other scholars. We have lots of them, and if you read their books, they're very, very, very strong in terms of the mind behind all these things. Yeah. So we have had a very strong basis in terms of physics, maths, these kind of science-based subjects in schools. So say when I was studying, when I was doing my master's in the UK, I saw lots of people who were all telling me the same thing, that the students who had mathematician or math or physics background in Russian schools, and then they went to the UK to study there, they were all considered to be very, very strong there. Because of these, scholars in Russia who have made their input into all this pedagogy and all these educational systems, it has been really, really strong.
Right.
It has become a bit weaker after the collapse of the Soviet Union.
Right.
But still, I'd say that we still do have this, firm foundation in these areas like physics, chemistry, maths, and like recently, some of the universities here in Russia have also been improving very much in social science as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the general situation here. Though no one assigned me as a representative of the Russian educational system, so I might be lacking certain maybe aspects of it, but
yeah.
Still, yeah.
But I do think that if you've worked in all these educational programs and you are still an educator in Russia, I do think that you're an authority in the topic, and you can at least give us insights about your educational system.
Yes.
Yeah. So I know that you have a YouTube channel, and I saw an amazing video where you took us on a ride, on a trip to a public school. You showed us the teachers, you talked to the students, and that was a boarding school. Do you have a lot of boarding schools in Russia?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, we have relatively a small number of boarding schools here. Okay. There are still some number. I'm not sure how many exactly here, but most of the schools are not boarding schools.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry.
And regarding my YouTube channel, since you mentioned it, as I told, I've been very lucky to have been working in all these, innovative projects. And at a certain point, I just realized that why don't I share all these things,
Amazing. Yes.
And I recently started my YouTube channel, and I'm just actually showing there what we are doing here. And there are so many ideas that I have to share there. And so, yes, one of the projects that I hope we will be having there is the school tours. Right. We will start with Russian schools, obviously, but hopefully when I will be visiting other schools after, the pandemic, I hope that we will also be seeing other schools as well. So yeah, I just thought that this is a good idea to actually show what all these schools are like here, right?
Oh,
because we don't really know anything about other systems in the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the goal of these interviews I'm doing. My last one, I did an interview with Switzerland, with Switzerland Education, and I learned a lot about their educational system. I did Nigeria, and I learned a lot about the Nigerian educational system. And now I'm talking to a Russian, and that's amazing, And I think that knowing about other educational systems, knowing about what other countries are doing in education, and how they're improving learning and teaching, and bringing in artificial intelligence into the educational system, I think that's going to give us an idea of what's working. What's working? What can we bring from Russia into the United States that's going to work in our educational systems? Or what can we take out from the Russian educational system, bring in some part of the Nigerian educational system, merge it, and see if it's going to work, So it's amazing just working with different countries, learning about their educational systems, bringing it into yours, fixing yours. It's amazing. It improves learning. It improves teaching. It improves all aspects of education. And it's amazing.
I totally agree with you. That's actually one of the reasons why on my YouTube channel last week, we had this discussion with educators from Brazil and from China. I
saw that. Yeah.
I was driven by the very same motivation, actually, to actually see the people, to ask them how they do there. And what we did there, we were talking. We were using the model of Hofstede. You might have seen it.
Yes, I saw it.
It's a really good way of actually identifying the key values of educational systems around the world. Because if you understand them, if you understand the system on the values level, you can actually understand what's going on there on the upper layers.
Yeah.
So it's really, really, really great.
It's interesting. It's exciting for educators to just, know about other educators, talk to them, learn about their systems. It's mind-boggling, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna play that video, where you gave us a tour of the Russian school. That was a Russian school. That school was in Russia, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and it was a boarding school as well. And and then we'll come back and talk about some more good stuff about Russian education.
Just coming. Again, just the way it was last time. I'm gonna go there by train tomorrow morning. I'm gonna arrive there. Yeah, good luck. Hey everyone, today I'm in Kazan again. I'm going to have another session here with the management team, and after that I will show you the school itself properly. These guys will be showing the school to us today, right? This one, the one with the shirt. So now we're going to have breakfast here in school. Hey. Educators of the world, unite! Wow, this thing here says School Business Incubator. There we go, here. It is a 3D printer. Well, this is what we want. So nothing that the students have created, right? Wow, what's this?
We try to give them best education in terms of subjects, so they prepare for Olympiads. They have good grades in state exams, and they can go to the best universities in Russia and abroad as well. Another side is their moral values and virtues, so we try to focus on universal values as well. So we try to bring them up as people of the world to hear about ecology, health, family, and a lot of things like that.
So right, there are actual bedrooms here. Yeah, say hi to...
Hi.
Yeah, to... Hi. You don't even know whom, right? So this is how the students are staying.
Let's keep going. So yes. Can you tell me about, okay, now this is about COVID-19. Like the world is ravaging in a pandemic, the educational systems are changing. Like, for instance, in the United States, I know we did have remote learning before. We had the face-to-face learning, but things are changing now that we are now more reliant on remote learning, more remote learning than the face-to-face learning because of the impact of the pandemic.
Yes.
Even the preschoolers now have to be on the computer for a certain time of the day to learn, whereas before the pandemic, they were in school all day, from morning till in the afternoons or evening, and then they go home. So, has the pandemic influenced your educational system in any way?
Of course it did, yes. I think Russia right now is pretty much in the same situation which all the other countries are facing in terms of, how to deal with all this pandemic, in terms of, how to manage educational systems when you cannot actually control it. So yeah, this is something that we are facing here. And I don't think that what we're having here is very, very different from the other places in the world. But what we have faced here is the educational system in general, like on the ministry level, on the federal level, was not at all ready. I don't think any country was ready for that kind of things, because
nobody was ready.
Yeah, because there are like lots of different factors which were not ready. We can start with the infrastructure aspect of it, like the internet connections, the ability of all these infrastructural networks to hold all these all these students all at once going online, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's and the system was crushing sometimes.
Right.
Though Russia in general has rather strong internet, I'd say, according to the international rankings. The speed of internet here is rather good. All the schools are connected to the internet and so on, but still it did have problems. Then the platforms itself, the educational platforms, they had never experienced that many people coming to their platforms all at once, so they were also crushing. Then we also faced this very, very difficult factor of the poor families not having either not having computers at all at home, or say if they have 2 kids or 3 kids. So this means that they need to have 2, 3, 4 computers, right?
Yeah.
And if at the same time their mom or dad are also working from home,
Mm-hmm.
they all need this computer, right? So do they need to buy like 5 computers or 2, 3 computers at home? Not every family can afford this, right?
Yes.
So these kind of things. And then say if 2 students, if they have 2 or 3 children, for example, if they are supposed to be studying from home, even though they might have, computers or using their smartphones to connect, they might not have enough place at home just to sit in quiet, right? To be able to participate in their lesson.
Like a learning space.
Right. Plus their mom and dad have to be also working somewhere near, right? And these kind of factors, all these things are really, really difficult.
Yes.
And we also faced that factor that the school teachers obviously were not ready to do that, though they do claim that they have, transferred their learning or teaching to online.
Right.
This is not really happening, right? Because online is completely different from offline. I mean, you have to be very, very proficient in things like instructional design, reorganize the whole learning process there, right? To be able to engage the students and so on. And that's obviously not happening in most of the places here in Russia, as I believe in pretty much everywhere in the world right now, because no one was ready.
Right.
So, it also deals with the aspect of digital literacy of the teachers themselves, right? Because some teachers could not even use, say, I don't know, Google Forms or some platforms for teaching, like Zoom or maybe something like that. Then the teachers also were facing problems with, say, collecting the homeworks of the students.
Right.
Say the students have done their homework, they take a picture on their phone, and then they send it out to the teacher. Then the teacher has to sit like all evening and look at these pictures. Some of the smartphones are not really good in taking pictures, and they don't see what's written in there. And everyone is struggling, so it's huge.
A lot of problems.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So what about mask and social distancing and all of that? How are there mandates like that?
I'll just quickly wrap up the educational system aspect of COVID-19.
Right.
So during the summer here in Russia, we saw that on the federal level, people were at least acknowledging all these difficulties, and lots of new initiatives are starting right now. Say the government have launched recently a program, a platform, which is bringing in all the different sources of educational content all together to make it easier for the teachers to find them. And these kind of initiatives, and like lots of different instructions, lots of different frequently asked questions and so on, all these things. So hopefully I hope that in a while it will become easier for the teachers, but I don't expect it to be very, very fast.
I know, because change takes time. It takes time to adapt to changes, and we're going through changes. And in addition to other problems in education, it's not just the pandemic. Unfortunately, there are other problems, and it's going to be a while till the entire world adjusts to what's going on now.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
As for the social distancing and masks and all these things, There are, of course, different people here. Some of them do follow these rules, some of them don't. But in general, the tendency that we saw here is that people kind of learn doing it because they see that lots of people are, getting ill. Yes. So, but in general, here in Russia, we didn't have too many deaths as compared to the United States, for example. Yeah, because in the very beginning, the authorities here, closed all the processes in the very beginning, like blocked lots of things, and that I think helped a lot. At least it's kind of made the point to the people that they have to consider all these new factors. They have to take care about themselves and understand that what's going on here. All these decisions are debatable, of course. No one knows what is the correct way to deal with.
Everybody's just trying different things and testing things.
But in general, yes, it's like pretty much everywhere in the world right now here in Russia.
I know.
It's actually interesting, how all this pandemic showed that all these countries, be they, they might be in different political regimes, right? But the pandemic showed that pretty much everyone is doing similar things in this kind of situation. We are humans at the end of the day.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know if there's any good thing about the pandemic, but I can say it kind of showed the world that we're all humans and we can all go through the same thing at the same time,
Yeah. It's kind of uniting people, in a way.
Yeah, in a way, And can you tell me, when I saw you, when you did the tour, and we just watched that video, when you did the tour with the public school, I saw, was that like on a Saturday? Because
it was Saturday. Yeah,
it was a Saturday. Okay, there were still people in school, and then you went to the hostels, and so for the boarding school, is that, do you have mandates, like when you come to school, maybe for the first time, you have to get your temperature checked, before you get in? Do they do that?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
Yeah, and even in the trains, when I was going there to visit that school by train, even in the train, I was checked.
You have to. Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yes. So tell me, this is an aspect of education that a lot of people want to know about. Special education. High special education in Russia, do you have emphasis on it? Is it do you have special schools for special children? How do you work with children who have special needs?
So yes, of course, we do have special schools for special children. And there are different categories of these schools depending on the specifics of these children. And I don't really know the name of the categories, but I know that I think there are like 6 or 7 categories, I believe.
Oh, wow.
So and depending on the category, they make the school structure or the program of the school accordingly to the specifics,
needs.
to the needs of the children, right? But still, I wouldn't say that the system is working perfectly here in Russia in these terms. But I'd say like pretty much in everywhere in the world, it's about funding, it's about teacher training, it's about actually including these kids to work,
to the learning,
to study, to the learning process, to other schools, and as well. And there are lots of also ethical issues here, I believe, that we need to reconsider sometimes. And I wouldn't say that there are no problems here in this sense. We do have problems, and hopefully, well, I see some programs being initiated here to improve the situation. Hopefully, like in certain years, in certain time, it will change, but we
Okay.
still have something to work on here.
To work on, yeah, even here in the United States. And I can give you an example, for instance, with the pandemic. You know how everybody, well, not everybody, most young preschoolers, they're just 4 years old or 5 year olds. They have to sit in front of the computer, you know, for a certain number of time, maybe 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes. I mean, a regular child with no special needs probably can sit for maybe 20, 25 minutes, depending on the age. But a child with special needs who has, for instance, has attention deficit, can't sit and focus and watch a screen for too long, you know. That's a problem. And that's not, let me turn this down. I don't know what's going on. I did turn it down, you know. So that's a problem with special needs education right now. How can we improve on remote learning as it relates to the special needs child, you know? And what can we do moving forward, you know, with the pandemic in mind? How can we create spaces where if they cannot learn remotely, they probably need to go face to face somewhere, you know, and learn with a teacher. So there are problems that will continue to plague the educational system and as it relates to special needs. But I think the most important thing is that people are working on fixing these problems.
Yeah, I hope so. Yes, definitely. Because there are lots of problems there. I mean, I'm not a specialist in this area, but the only thing that I can say is that, yes, this is really, really problematic area.
It is. So, so I know you mentioned a little bit about funding in Russia. How, can you give me more details about how schools are funded in Russia?
So as I mentioned, according to one of the research in 2017, there were slightly more than 98% of the schools that were public, and a bit less than 2% of the schools were private. But the researchers were saying there that the number of private schools is increasing in Russia. And I believe that they were telling that by 2021, I think it will increase up to 5 or 6% or so. I don't know the exact number, the exact percentage right now, but so the overall tendency is that most of the schools are public, like absolutely most of the schools, and there is a certain rise of private schools. And generally, so since in Russian constitution, like the most important law here is constitution, so it says that everyone should be given a free and quality education. And so all the schools, all the parents, if they want to, they can find a free, not payable place in a school. And even it was actually interesting. I was writing my essay about the funding system in Russia when I was doing my master's in Bristol. And I found out that an interesting aspect there, which I didn't know before, that if you are launching a private school in Russia, then the government will still pay you some of the money in accordance with the number of students, because these students' parents are also, Russian citizens, and they are paying the taxes. And from these taxes, some of the money is given back to these private schools. So you are a private school, okay? But still, since it's in constitution that it says that everyone deserves it, so some amount of these money is given back to even these private schools, right?
Wow, yeah.
Interesting,
amazing.
I believe that there is this discussion in the UK right now that if the parents are sending their kids to the private schools, they are sometimes expecting some of the money from the government, which is given from their taxes, right? Basically, to be given back to them, because otherwise, it's interesting that you are paying the taxes plus you are then paying for the private education again, right? Like double payment.
Yeah.
So this is one of the things. So there are then aspects like there are different kinds of funding in schools. There are schools that are funded directly from the federal budget, then regional budget, and then municipal budget, like city or town level budget. So and then each school gets something, some amount of money based on on the number of students from the federal budget, and some of them is coming from the municipal, these kind of things, So and there are things like free meals for the kids until they grow up to like 3rd grade, I believe. So something like that, like for the small kids.
For the children, yeah.
Because just in case that the families cannot afford it, maybe these kind of things. So
So do you have early childhood education, like daycares, and
sure,
you have them? Okay.
It's also government funded, and also it's almost free.
Wow.
Yeah.
So education from the preschool level all the way through the university level, is that subsidized education, or is it free education?
Well, it's free for the learners, for the students, for their parents, but it's not free for the government, of course.
Oh yeah.
Right. So at the university level, there is more diversity in terms of public or private places in the university, and I don't know the exact ratio there, but I'd say like maybe half of the students' positions in the universities are funded by government. Like huge ratio. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So can you tell me about like what 3 elements can you say have contributed to the growth of education in Russia?
Wow, that's a good question. 3 factors that have contributed to growth.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why, but historically we have had some really great minds here, some really great scholars in terms of pedagogy and psychology. I don't know the exact reason for that. It just happened.
We see it in the history books.
Yes.
It's all about the history books. The history in education is a lot of Russian philosophers.
Yeah, I don't know why, actually. Yeah. I have never thought about it. Yeah, so I'd say that this is one of the most powerful factors here. This is one. Then probably the political regime, or maybe during the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
This idea of equity probably was forcing the government to actually build the schools of certain quality level everywhere in the country. So there was no such thing as in this area the schools are good and in that area it's not. So there is a government standard of quality, and it applies to everywhere.
Everyone and everywhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like naturally it brings up the quality everywhere. So it might be not very fantastic level, but it's pretty good, and that's good for for overall system. I'd say this is the second factor, and third, I think that in general, for some reason, again, here in Russia, we value intellectual power. There is a certain high level of culture here, I'd say, in terms of theater, literature, this kind of arts, and generally, it's considered, on the values level, we do value educated people.
Oh yeah.
Though we still have lots of problems with it, like we do have a lot of problems. Like lots of intellectuals are also leaving the country sometimes. But overall, like if we look at Russian situation here in general, I'd say that overall the cultural level here is pretty high, and we have lots of great people here, and there is this common understanding of the value of knowledge, of being educated, these kind of things. So this cultural factor also contributes a lot to these processes.
To the growth, of education.
Yeah.
And this is on a personal level. Like, what challenges have you encountered, you know, as an educator, you know, since you started now, you know, what challenges have you encountered personally?
Well, personally, when I was working in a school, for example, I felt that there are not many options of, you know, career growth within a school, because I didn't want to manage a school per se. I wanted something different. And while I was working in a school, I felt these borders of, you know, trying to find something new, but not being able to within these, you know, borders of a school.
Right.
Then another factor was that even though after several places, I came back to school once, and I worked as a project manager in a school, and we did, you know, this transition to metrics management in one of the schools. Even though I was given pretty much freedom there, then I started experiencing the financial factor of it, because the schools here are funded, I'd say, not enough. I think it's like 3.6% of GDP, I think, something like that. Yeah. It's not enough, definitely. We do need to raise this number. But yeah, this is some like personal challenge that I faced when I was working in a school. So I was like, and I got married that time, and I felt like this is really not enough to me personally. I didn't feel this, you know, freedom, and I felt that I could do more in terms of money as well. So this was one of the reasons why I left school, actually.
Wow.
So yeah, but in a way it was good in terms of, you know, I then faced like lots of other great projects, and then I also realized that you can do education in lots of other ways. So now I do consult projects. The salaries here in, you know, government's projects, if you're doing truly something innovative, are of course higher than in schools. So you do get your wage high. You do get the funds. You do get the funding and everything if you become a professional here in education. But that's something that I was facing when I was working in a school. That was a personal problem for me.
Yeah, I think I faced that problem as well. Education is not cheap, you know.
Yes.
It's not. Even if it's subsidized, even if you get grants, even if you get loans, you know, you still have to invest into your personal education. So it's not.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
And the higher you go, the more expensive it gets. So
definitely.
Yeah.
I remember a moment in my life when I had to sell my car in order to get one more degree in psychology.
Yeah, wow.
Because on the one hand it was my car, and then on the other hand it was, you know, new skills, and I was like, you know, I don't need a car. I'd rather go and study there. But these kind of things do matter when you make your decisions.
Yes.
So yeah. And right now, I can also tell right now what I'm facing right now as a parent as well.
Yeah, I know.
Because say my daughter now is 4 years old, and she's going to a private kindergarten, and but still I am not happy with all of this, you know, things that she's facing there. I believe that the systems should be better, and even after hopefully she finishes, graduates from, you know, kindergartens and so on, then another problem is gonna come again. That's
every level you go.
What schools then?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm thinking about how can I use my skills and my knowledge for my kids as well.
Right.
But yeah, we got lots of things to do here, right?
Yeah. And I mean, having these conversations, you know, with different educators from all over the world, and, you know, interacting with people about education and educational processes, I think that's like a part of the solution to educational problems, you know.
Yes,
so because when the more you learn, the more you know, because knowledge is key to solving problems.
Yeah, I would agree. I definitely would agree. But another factor here is that sometimes when we just trying to collect, say, the best ideas from different educational contexts and trying to apply them, we sometimes face this, that we cannot directly take them and put them in our situations, because context matters really, really much, because all these different small factors that are out there really matter. So that's why what we believe here in Russia, at least in the professional societies that I am involved in, is that we as educators need to possess the skills of, it's actually engineering skills, the skills that help us to reorganize educational systems, considering all the factors of different contexts. That's the skills that we all need, I believe.
Yeah, I believe that too. So can you, let me put this somewhere, hold on. Can you tell me about the teacher hiring process in Russia? Like, how do you hire your teachers?
Do you mean schools? In schools?
Yes, in schools. Yeah, how are they hired? Do they go through a certain process?
So overall, there is this problem here in Russia now that, like recently, in recent years, recent decades, probably, the teaching profession was not considered to be a very, very good option for the youth, at least, because of the salary levels mostly. And so there is this certain problem here that sometimes people who can, like school graduates who cannot find themselves in some other professions, are forced to go to some education schools or universities that teach, education. So this is like one negative factor. And then after even graduating these universities, these people usually try to find other work than teaching, and only those who cannot go to schools. So this is like second negative factor here. This is like the general tendency. And so overall, we have to say that here in Russia, we have, in general, elderly teachers mostly, teachers that are coming from the previous generations, and they are staying in the schools because, when you have been working in schools for like decades, you don't really, you cannot even work elsewhere sometimes.
It's like you're stuck with the teaching profession.
Yeah, you don't know anything other than that.
Yeah, wow.
So yeah, there is this certain tendency here, but recently there have been some government initiatives that hopefully will help to break these tendencies in terms of giving some extra salaries for the to the young educators, right? Yes. And some benefits for them in terms of getting when they want to buy a house or a flat or do something for their living, help there, with mortgage and so on, and these kind of programs. But yeah, this is still not enough. We can feel here that this is still not enough, though there are lots of young educators already that are coming, but still they are not enough. And coming back to your question, how do you hire them? Of course, if you are a young teacher, if you are, talented, initiative, and so on, there is a queue of school principals which would like to hire you as a teacher. Say, just before our call, actually, I was consulting a school principal, and we were talking about where to get the team, where to get all these people, because he is launching a new school in one of the cities here in Russia. And the question is, where do you get the people?
Where are the teachers?
Yeah. And it's also very difficult to get the management team in the schools because, in a city, everyone knows everyone. So even if it's a big city like Moscow, all these, stars, like management stars in the education, everyone knows them. and you kind of try to, invite them. But then, if you're not that talented, I wouldn't say talented. I mean, everyone is talented, but if you are not that established, then
nobody wants to hire you, right?
No. Everyone's pretty much happy to hire you, actually, if you are young. But if you are like after starting from 45 or 50 years old, they will still hire you because they usually have certain positions, but the demand is lower. And there are some areas here, especially rural areas, where they do not have teachers at all. And if they can find any teacher there, they will hire them.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah. And that's a huge contrast, between your educational system and the Swiss educational system. Because did you, if you watch that interview, he said in educators, like they are rated very high, they are paid well, they have benefits, they have incentives, and like the educational system there, they value teachers,
Unfortunately, it's not like that here in Russia.
Yeah.
I really hope that one day this tendency will change, because it's really important how much money you actually send to these sector to, increase the salaries and everything like that. So it's really, really important. But right now we do have these problems here.
Right.
As I said, there are certain initiatives that are trying to change the situation, but overall, I'd say we haven't yet dealt with it completely. Yeah, got in there.
Yes. And same thing with the Nigerian educational system. She did say teachers are not well paid. Teaching is not enticing young people. They don't want to teach, because they want to make money. They want to get a house. They want to get a car, and if teaching is not paying well, then nobody wants to go teach. They want to go do something else. They want to be a doctor or a lawyer, because that's where the money is. So this is something that different societies, different educational systems, different governments can work on, funding schools more, paying teachers more, paying educators more, to entice younger people. People just coming out from school, they have the theory, they know this thing, enticing them into teaching or the teaching profession.
Yes, I hate to say that, but we do have these problems here in Russia. But hopefully we will fix all these things one day.
Right. So, how in the United States, for instance, we have the Common Core curriculum. Can you tell me about Russian curriculum? What kind of curriculum do you use? Do you use one for the entire country, or you have a variety of different curricula?
Well, I'm not a big expert in this topic, but from what I know, there is a certain standard which is applying to the whole country in terms of curriculum as well.
Okay.
We do have certain programs for each subject, or say certain books, certain program elements for this curriculums.
Okay.
But there is also certain level of freedom when it comes to the subjects which are not like core elements of the system.
Right.
And but overall, I'd say pretty much standard everywhere. And then it depends on the quality of the teacher who is teaching this subject.
Okay. And I want to say this: when you do your school tours, you visit schools, can you ask them about their curriculum? I want to know, and I'll be looking out for your videos. Ask them what curriculum they are using at that particular school.
Okay, I will.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I'm also planning to visit not only like best schools in Russia, but pretty much like normal, usual rural schools sometimes as well, just to show the difference between all these things.
Right. That would be nice. Yes.
Yeah.
So, do you know how the curriculum addresses STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and maths, or STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths?
Yeah, so lately, like for say last decade or so, we have been focusing on these topics a lot. As I said, we already had pretty much experience in these, fundamental science subjects like maths and technology and so on. But in a way, yeah, it's even more focused now on these areas. And I know of certain programs here, certain government initiatives that are hardly focusing on, heavily focusing on these topics. Right. And there are certain programs here in Russia which help the students to get involved into certain projects, to bring these kind of programs together, these kids together, to organize certain tasks for them, projects, then helping these teams to participate in hackathons and these kind of things. So yeah, there is definitely this focus here in Russia on these STEM and STEAM as well.
Okay. Can I ask something? What about language? Like, what languages do they speak in schools? Do they teach English language, for instance? Like, how do Russian schools work in regards to language?
Well, of course, the main language here in Russia is Russian, but there are certain regions here in Russia. There are like 85 regions here in Russia, and some of these regions are not Russian historically. So I'm coming from that kind of region myself. So my nationality is not Russian. I'm Tatar. It's Tatar. So basically, if you are coming from that kind of region where I'm coming from, it's called Republic of Tatarstan here. It's like 800 kilometers east from Moscow. And in that particular region, from the very birth, we are bilingual. And the schools as well are bilingual.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So say I'm coming from a Tatar family, so I speak Tatar, and then I learn Russian as well when I go to kindergarten, for example.
Oh, wow.
And then in the school, we have at least one foreign language usually, which is usually English.
Okay.
And so it becomes 3. Then in my school, there was one more foreign language, which was Turkish. So I now speak 4 languages.
4 languages, wow.
Yeah, right. And my 4-year-old daughter is also now speaking 3 languages.
Oh, wow.
She's 4 years old, but she speaks 3 languages. Yes, because we are teaching her English. I try to speak English mostly with her.
Yeah.
And it also helps that we spent 1 year in the UK. It also was very helpful for our daughter to speak English. So generally, there is at least one foreign language here in schools. So it's usually English. And it really depends on the quality of the teaching there. So that in some schools, the students leave the school knowing English very well. But in some schools, they don't really know language.
Wow.
Yeah,
but then they still can blend in the society, because most of what you speak is Russian, right? So even when they're working, they can work with people. They don't need to know English to work. They don't need to know English to drive, for instance, because you have Russian signs everywhere, right?
Sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. I like that your society is multilingual. So by the time you finish school, you at least you have 2 languages.
But it's not in every region. There are, I think, like maybe maximum of 8 or 10 regions like that out of 85 here in Russia, which are bilingual in the very core. But most of the regions, like the majority of the regions, are Russian.
Oh, wow.
So in these areas, people usually speak Russian.
Just one language, yeah.
Plus foreign language, as I said.
Okay. So, what about mathematics? Is that a core subject, and how is it taught in Russia?
Well, as I mentioned, maths in general, we have pretty good foundations of math teaching here in Russia.
Right.
And Russia is well known for its scientists in terms of, say, nuclear stations. This energy, what do you call them? Nuclear energy stations. These plants, right?
Right.
And to produce these kind of things, you do have to have really, really good scientists.
Right.
And in general, maths here in Russia is really, really good. Right. So this is like one of the things that we can be proud of here. And it doesn't mean that it's very good everywhere, but in general, when it comes to the to the curriculum, to the methodologies of all that, the programs in school, the teacher trainings, and so on. But of course, we also have lots of things to improve here as well.
Right.
Like pretty much in every area.
In every area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But generally, it's not bad here. I'd say it's rather good.
Is there? I know that you're geared towards like sciences, technology, physics, chemistry, mathematics, stuff, subjects like that. What about arts? What about painting? What about music? What about molding or sculpture? What about that kind of learning in Russia?
Do you mean in schools or generally in Russia?
In schools.
In schools.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say that in schools we do that a lot. I mean, we do have lessons of music, we do have lessons of art, we do have some molding for the kids and so on. But generally, when it comes to this art, we have some special schools, which I used to visit actually. When I was a kid, like starting from, I think when I was 10 years old or so, I started going to a school like that. I think it was like three times per week. And I was learning to, draw and paint there. And I spent 5 years there, by the way.
Wow.
In parallel with the
regular education.
Regular school, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So there are these, music schools, art schools for kids, which actually focusing on these arts. And after finishing these schools, some kids who want to do that, they actually go and choose these as their future profession, like I thought I would do.
Okay.
Like my first degree was in interior design, so I spent 5 years in this school for kids where we drew, we painted a lot, we did all that molding and so on, and then I spent 6 years doing interior design.
Cool.
Yeah, right. So yeah, there are. So do you have common system? Do you have this schools, music schools or art schools for kids? You probably do, right?
Yeah, they do. And they now have, some private sector like organizations, and they create different programs. They create like dance schools. They create like painting schools. Just mainly focused on the arts. And even within the schools, I know that STEAM is kind of a new concept. It used to be just STEM. Everybody was like science, technology, engineering, and maths. It's important, and this and that. And then another school of thought is like, what about arts? Children need arts too. So there's this new emphasis on.
But I have to mention here that the schools that I was talking about now, the art schools and music schools, are also funded by the government.
Oh wow!
So that means that it's they are not completely free for the parents. But they are far less expensive than it might be if they were private.
Wow! But you still have some private ones, right?
Of course.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
But they are just more expensive.
Yeah.
But if you can afford it, people try to go there because usually, not always, but usually the quality there is higher a bit.
Right. Even now in the US, in some public funded schools, they have art labs, where the children have going into the labs and work with art. They can draw, they can mold, they can sculpt, they can do all kinds of things. So I think this is a general growth in education, and I think it's around the world. And we are now realizing that art is important. It's equally as important as science,
Yeah. It has been seen as important here for ages, I believe, in Russia, because we have pretty much famous theater, literature, cultural things in general. You know, arts. There are lots of artists which are very well known, you know, in the world scale. We do value that.
Right. So what about assessments and testing? How is that done? Assessments of teachers, and are they working well? Are they doing their job well? And assessments of children. How do they move from one level of education to another level of education?
Well, mostly, first of all, I need to say that we do have these state exams here, like pretty much everywhere in the in the world.
Yeah.
And this brings us to this factor of, you know, preparing the kids to these state exams rather than focusing at, say, arts. And of course, there is this tendency here as well. So in order to go to some best universities here in Russia, the students have to be very good in these state exams. That's why naturally they tend to focus on the state exams, you know, towards the, you know, finishing the school. And there is no such thing as assessment. Mostly there is no such thing as assessment when the kids are, say, transferring from kindergarten to a school, to primary school, you know, secondary school, and so on. There is no such borders there. Okay. As for the teacher's assessment, well, there are certain standards here, which mainly can be seen in terms of, you know, documents that the teachers are filling out, the programs that they're preparing for the year, and like once or twice a year, a special commission comes and looks at all these documents and checks whether they are good or not. But it doesn't really deal with the actual quality of education, I suppose, because, you know, you can prepare all these documents, right? But it doesn't mean that you become a great teacher. In a way, these two processes are related, but it's not like completely effective system, I think. Yeah. And there is no such thing as, you know, actually coming to the teacher's lessons, giving them formative feedback and so on. There is no such thing here on the systematic level. There are certain institutions that are helping the teachers to develop professionally. And from what I know, every 5 years, at least, a teacher has to pass through a certain course. Otherwise, there will not be accredited or something like that. Yes. So every 5 years at least. But sometimes all these courses also are just, you know, bureaucratic procedure. They actually go and attend a course, but these courses might not be the best courses in the world. And in general, I'd say if we would go very hard on teachers here, we already have problems with teachers. You know?
We're getting them.
Yeah, they will, you know, run away.
They will. Yeah. So it's been amazing. It's been phenomenal, you know, talking to you, learning about Russian education. I mean, it's mind-blowing how different your educational system is from ours, and yet how similar, you know, it is. And also comparing with Switzerland and Nigeria that I've been privileged to talk to. It's just amazing. It's mind-blowing. And, you know, I enjoyed talking to you. I love that conversation. I love learning about Russian education. And I know that our listeners, our viewers, some of them were curious. And now, you know, we've kind of satisfied a certain curiosity about your educational system. So I want to say thank you. You're amazing. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for spending this time with me, you know, discussing these various topics that we talked about. And I appreciate you a lot. And thank you.
Thank you, Brenda, very much for having me here. I'd like to add that your initiative, the thing that you are doing right now, is really important because we do need to communicate a lot. We do need to compare. We do need to reflect on the differences, similarities, and everything like that is really helpful for the educators because at the end of the day, it's the kids' lives that we're working with, right? And depending on how efficient and effective we are as educators, how well we create all these educational systems, it will actually influence the future of the next generations. So that's why thank you for organizing all these processes here. And I wish you good luck with your next interviews. And by the way, I'd like to just use this moment and invite your viewers as well to come and visit my channel as well, in terms of, you know, I'm trying to show what's education here in Russia. And I'm also trying to show how all these new initiatives, new innovations in education can be done. Right. So hopefully, if someone finds value in that as well, you are very welcome to join us as well. So thank you, Brenda, for what you're doing.
Yeah, and I'm going to leave a link of your channel in the description box below, so people can go on there and check you out and subscribe to his channel. You know, if you're an educator, you want to know about other educational systems. And I know that Illnur is doing an amazing job, you know, showing us Russia. And those school tours you're doing, they are phenomenal. I love to watch them, and your interviews as well. So if you're an educator, even if you're not an educator, you're interested in learning about educational system, learning about other, you know, what other countries are doing in terms of education, subscribe to his channel.
Yeah, or if you're a parent, for example.
If you're a parent, you're interested in, you know, how your children are learning, and how you can compare their learning to other learning situations in other countries. Go ahead and subscribe to his channel, because he's amazing.
Thank you, Brenda, for inviting me today. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. And I'll be in touch, definitely.
Yeah,
I'll be in
definitely.
touch.
Yeah. Thank you.